innovations. So moving on to innovation, we have the keynote. It's not just the keynote, it is a motivational keynote. So, and who better to do that than our own Shreehas Tambe? As he said in his remarks that he is an alumnus of this institute, and as much as he is proud to be here, I think we are double proud to for having us here, but not only that, for having reached where you have reached in life. So he is one of the first batch, I think, of the MTech PPT, Bioprocess Technology, if I'm not wrong, right? And I've seen him. I mean, he went to a Biocon. Biocon happened to be the first job, and he has stuck out, and he is today, let me tell you what he is exactly. He's President and Chief Operating Officer at Biologics and Biocon. He has served as a Senior Vice President, Head of Global Insulin Business and Group Projects, and he has led and managed development, manufacturing, and commercialization of a portfolio across geographies, as well as established strategic opportunities for in-licensing, co-development of products across the world for Biocon. I'm sure Biocon is equally proud to have him working with them as we are, that he's our alumnus. So, your motivational speech, sir. Thank you. And if you don't mind, I'll go there.
Good morning once again. Thank you, Dr. Lali, Dr. Jain, distinguished guest, alumni, friends from the industry. I think there's a certain difference in the way UDCT has been, is what I said when I was talking about my earlier remarks in the day. And that's the ethos of what UDCT or ICT, and I keep referring to it as UDCT, has been. Because the ethos was always to find relevant problems from the industry which affect real life, and to see if we could find a solution to them in academia. The focus was to see if we could drive performance, drive efficiency, to make innovation affordable. That was the ethos, and that has been something that has driven ICT's research orientation. I think that is something that I carried through when I moved from ICT to industry. And I was very happy to see, and Dr. Lali rightly introduced, I went from campus to industry, and I haven't moved, is because I think that ethos has been very much similar in the place that I work, which is at Biocon. Because I think the focus is to provide affordable innovation. If innovation isn't affordable, then it can't reach the people who are looking forward to it. And then that innovation has very limited meaning. We are all we are of course there for business, so don't get me wrong. We are there to make money, we are there for profit. But in our business, in our line of work, there is a humanitarian side to what we do. And that is for the access that we need to create. There is a social responsibility to the type of products and the work that we do. I want to kind of use this time together with you to have a quick look at what's bothering us. Where are the spends? Where are worldwide, what are we doing? We are actually worldwide spending over 500 billion or $500 billion in just these 10 disease areas. And these are non-communicable diseases. And if you were to just take a closer look at this, the top 3 of these are really debilitating diseases: oncology, diabetes, and autoimmune diseases. These 3, if you were to look at it, also are where most people are worried about, because the diseases do not affect just the patients who suffer for them, but the impact is much larger because it affects their families and the people who connect to them. So it is not just a problem of just solving that particular disease for the patient, but it's a social impact that we need to create. I want to take a deep dive into just two of them. I want to dive into diabetes, which is probably known as the silent killer. And I also want to take a closer look at oncology in the next few slides to see and define, or at least try to take a definition of what these diseases look like, and is it a localized problem that we need to deal with. So let's look at the magnitude of the issue. Now, I've called it the diabetic epidemic, and the reason I call this the epidemic is if you were to look at the world, and you can see, and it's easy to look at the graphic, but there are almost 425 million people who are right now living with diabetes. And this number is expected to grow by almost another 50% in less than 30 years from now. And you can see it is not a problem in just one place in the world. It affects globally. If you go closer into this issue, there is a further dynamic or further matrix which reveals, and that is that there is this entire underdeveloped or emerging market or emerging economy space which is really seeing the worst of it all. And there are enough reasons why people have stated that this is related to lifestyle, this is related to the stress levels or whatever, but there is no denying that apart from these emerging economies, and even if you look at the Middle East and North Africa, this is clearly a challenge that we need to deal with. There is no denying that, that this is a problem to be solved. Now, this graphic is showing us that this is a problem that could be just affordability in emerging economies, okay? Because the governments aren't rich enough and we aren't able to afford the medication. Now, is that what this problem is about? Let's look westwards, and which better place to look at than the US, because US is supposedly the most evolved economy in terms of healthcare. It also has the regulation, the access to products. So if we look at the insulin perspective just in the United States, you have 46 million diabetics last year, and they expect it to grow by 35%. Looks like a manageable problem on the face of it. Looking at the world dynamics, looking at India, it looks like a problem which can be dealt with. But let's look at some of the snippets which have come across in the press and see what's happening. Insulin prices have been doubling over the last 6 years. People are dying. They're saying, this is a CNN snippet. This is what people are saying, that by 2030, there will be 40 million diabetics be left without product. There are several horror stories that people cite every day. This is a recent publication which was posted by CBS News. Some of these stories are heart-wrenching, okay? And it is not something which is limited just to the emerging part of the world. What is happening here is drug prices are soaring. This is just one of the graphics, okay, which shows you that over the last 20 years, from 97 to 17, and we haven't indexed the numbers as they are because this is the US, drug prices have soared 800% for human insulin, and over 1100% for the rapid-acting analogs. And this is not limited just to one product. It is just simply unaffordable because there are situations where people just can't afford to pay their insurance cover on this. If you were to read some of the stories on that, people are going off meals just to be able to not take the dose. So it is not a problem just in emerging economies. No wonder that the Congress, the government has taken charge. Senators, congressmen are now saying there needs to be legislation to actually do something about this. And we'll talk more about what those solutions can be. The Biosimilars Center has posted a report saying we need to do something about this. There are 3 insulins in the United States today, but there is not a single generic. There is not a single biosimilar which can help alleviate this problem. The question that the US administration is now asking is, can biosimilars pave the way? Can it help alleviate this social, really menace at this point? Okay, we talked about diabetes a bit. Let's look at cancer. That's another debilitating, dynamic that we will see. There are 18 million new cases that are detected every year. This is a report by the World Health Organization from 2014. I wouldn't be surprised if these numbers are growing. Of this 18 million, Asia accounts for 50% of these new detected cases, which means the problem's coming closer to home. If you look at the 5-year prevalence, there are 44 million people, and that number's doubled since 1990. Clearly, there's something that needs to be done about it, because by 2018, when we are done, there will be 10 million lives lost just to cancer. And if you were to see this number, it is likely to increase by 35% very soon. So it is not something that we can forget, because again, this disease and this problem does not affect just the individual, it affects the society. Coming closer to home, as I said, what does our data say? Now, we've got databases which are pointing towards what our dynamic is looking like. It's saying that in 2015, we had only about 1 million patients who suffered from cancer, okay? Now, is this likely to be true? Now, it's very likely that this reporting of these cases is on the lower end. And that is probably because detection in India, and you can see this, the two most prevalent types of cancer, which is the breast cancer and cervical cancer, detection in India at a late stage is the highest in the world, which basically means that we are unable to detect signs of cancer in early stages. And even if we do detect, and the reason we can't detect is because you see the disparity in the numbers, that we don't have enough oncologists who can do that for us. Even if we do detect, 75% of those patients can't afford treatment. And 90% of those patients who you detect at the late stage just can't take care of the treatment cost. And that's because only a third, or about a third of the people are covered by insurance. The rest have no cover. There is no affordable treatment available in the market. Those costs are just for those drugs are available only for the elite. Now, can we do something about it is the question. So, of course, treatments have been evolving. So, I'm not trying to paint a doomsday scenario. I'm just trying to set the context to tell you that this is not something that we can ignore, because this is just a growing figure. Quite disturbing, but is there something that can change? Can we do something to help improve this situation? How is this landscape evolving? If you look at 2021, the top drugs in that space were about cardiovascular. We were focusing on cardiovascular disease. That was debilitating at that point in time. 5 years hence, the focus has moved to autoimmune and oncology. And from being top 5 drugs in the top 15, we have now 11 of the top 15 drugs being biologics. Now, there is a reason why this change is happening, and why is that dynamic changing? And the dynamic is changing because we are in a position to address the disease more specifically with lesser of these issues. The molecules that we talked about before are the kind which have a much smaller molecular weight, and hence we call them small molecules. Now, we are talking about much larger molecules which have more specificity to the kind of receptors that we are targeting, which we believe will trigger this autoimmune response. So how are they different? Very simply put, the size is large. That's why they are called large molecules or biologics. The structure is complex. The manufacturing process is complex. So very, very clearly, these are expressed in unique cell lines, which have many possibilities for post-translational modifications, which basically means that no two biologics or biosimilars will be identical. And there will be chances that they will look very different. Now, if they were to look different, then they need to be characterized. They need to be understood. And they need to be tested very closely to be in a position that whatever you are delivering to the patients who are looking for these products are getting exactly what they want. There is no, I mean, it's quite intuitive that it goes through 5 times more testing to see, in-process tests for quality than a typical small molecule. Now, all of this adds to cost. So you have a solution to the problem, but it is also expensive. The question is, can it be an affordable alternative? That's really the question. Now you found a healthcare solution. It may not be the magic wand, but you have something which can help alleviate that pain, improve quality of life. Global pharma industry is expected to be over $1 trillion in the next 3 years, okay? 27% of this will be biologics. Does biosimilar have a space in this? Can it offer physicians that confidence that it can help change the healthcare dynamic? I think that is really the question. Can we create that difference? The whole thing begins with development, okay? Why does it cost so much? How much does it cost? And why is it different? What is a biosimilar? How is it going to change that dynamic? If you were to make a new biologic, your focus clearly in the development curve would be on clinical studies, because your focus will be to establish safety and efficacy. If you are trying to develop a biosimilar, your focus is to make sure that the product is similar to the reference product. That's your biggest focus. Now, despite this, it takes, from here to here, it takes about 8 years today to make a biosimilar. And it takes anywhere in between $100 to $250 million to develop a biosimilar. It is, of course, a tenth or so of a new novel biologic. There is no doubt there's an improvement. But it's still extremely expensive if you compare it to a small molecule generic, which would probably be $10 million or less in development. So there is still a huge order of magnitude difference in the cost that we can do. Is it possible then to create real world disruptions? Europe has shown that there is a possibility to approve biosimilars, and you can see quite a few of them have been approved in the last several years, with majority of them in the last 5 years. Europe's really been ahead of the curve, so to say, in terms of approving and bringing affordable healthcare to the world. If you see what's driven that is a very science-driven approach to approving new products. A centralized procedure, clear guidelines, because you cannot conduct clinical trials for 50 indications. They've been able to come up with science-driven approaches to extrapolation of indications. They have defined clearly how long it will take to get an approval. If you have the answers, you know how long it will take to get an approval. You are not going to be in a black box that you don't know what's going to come your way. If you have the answers, if you have the science, there is a predictability to your business. The big question around biosimilars has always been, it's not identical, so can you actually switch it with the innovator product? Is it interchangeable? Can it be used like a small molecule, switchability between the brand and the product? I think Europe's been able to lay down those guidelines very well. If you look at what's been approved, I've just taken 5 examples of what is out there in the market. And you can see that these drugs have created the commercial disruptions that you want. You're clearly seeing that filgrastim has created 93% penetration into the market today. It's basically created that affordability that is possible, which basically means that this can be done. It's no longer something where you're betting on something which may or may not happen. It is happening. It is happening, and it's happening in one of the most science-driven markets in the world, which basically means that this is possible. Affordable healthcare can be made accessible with high-quality products. So that is probably the first good sign for anybody to look at from a commercial matrix. And that's extremely important, very confidence-inspiring. But that's first signs, that's first wave. But what is needed now? What is needed now is from the industry and academia. I think we need a deeper understanding of this science. We clearly have to understand the molecule better. We can't expect that every post-translational modification needs to be proven in the clinic so that you actually do a risk assessment and then you undergo a whole process, because that is just too expensive. 70% of drug development costs for a biosimilar comes from the clinical piece only. If we can address that, then we can actually get control of it. And academia has a big role to play if they can actually find a way from instrumentation, from techniques, which can actually characterize processes and characterize proteins much better. Manufacturing processes need to improve, become more efficient. We were complacent at one point in time because the focus was to get the quality right. Now the focus, just like chemical synthesis, will be to get the efficiencies right. From the government and regulators, I think this is something that needs to happen very soon. We have seen that it is more that the policy was written that way and things have been written that way, so the regulators are unwilling to take a risk with public health. I think there needs to be more aggression from the regulators in terms of trying to take decisions based on science. Europe has shown the way. It is possible to look at issues of immunogenicity, interchangeability, comparability of products from a scientific lens, and hence grant quicker approvals. It's important that regulators, try and harmonize practices so that you do not create clinical studies in each market and generate data after data, so that you are actually just delaying the process of getting products to that market. Leverage global data, see how much of this can be made accessible to patients as quickly as you can. And finally, I think patient advocacy groups are extremely important, because they are the ones who need to inspire confidence and educate not just patients and their families, but also physicians who need to gain confidence that these products are not just efficacious but safe for use as much as the brand that they have been comfortable with. It's not just about cost, but it's also about quality, which is the underpinning of any biosimilar that you make. The good things for us, if you look at it, there are the 5 key stakeholders, the companies themselves, and you are seeing that the companies are making those right moves. They're stepping up to the challenge. Governments, and I showed you some of the snippets in the US, are realizing the power of biosimilars, and they're saying, listen, we need to do these things differently. It can't be just the brand anymore. Regulators, and I talked specifically about Europe, are making those steps and driving those decisions to faster approvals. Physicians have started to make those decisions. You've seen commercial success that I talked about for those 4 or 5 molecules that I gave you a matrix on. And finally, there is really a chance that patients, particularly in emerging economies, can actually have access to affordable healthcare at some point in the near future. I think that is really why I say that the future does look promising. It is something that we have to build on. There is no doubt about it. And I think with all the talent, all the skill, all the knowledge at our command, I wouldn't be wrong in saying that the future does look promising. If I were to quote Biocon's chairperson, Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, she's always been saying that a blockbuster is not really about $1 billion. It's really about us making the effort to be able to serve 1 billion patients. If we can actually get there, then our mission of actually being in the space, generating and running a profitable business, has actually created a difference to the society that we intend to be and serve in. So that is really my message to you, and I think we all have a purpose and a responsibility with all the education and the knowledge at our command. Thank you. So.
I'm sure there are quite a few questions.
Good morning, and thank you very much for this insight. I have a question. The question is, this being a very nascent market, biosimilars or maybe biologics, as compared to the API and generics, which cannot be, which can be replaced. You can give another generic and then you have proven clinical or whatever data you have. Biosimilars can differ. They have their own characteristics and other things. My question is how information technology, we being a very nascent market now, be helpful, because maybe a family history, so that we have availability, accessibility, and affordability of these biosimilars, that we maintain from this now and create a database in India which can give insights to, okay, my parents have this disease, they were on this medication, maybe I have this. So it would be rather beneficial for us. That's my question. How do you see this information technology being used for biosimilars from the very beginning?
So thank you for your question. First, let me break down your question in two or three parts.
Yeah.
The first thing is that you talked about using IT or using information technology for database creation of disease dynamics of patients and hence genealogy. I think there is effort being made by the government themselves to see that data is captured and to see if a particular patient, a particular segment of people are at risk for a particular disease. I think that is being put together by the public health agencies at this stage. But the second piece where biosimilars can make a difference, I think is really about seeing that how can you use in silico analysis, which I referred to, so that you can actually characterize the product using information technology tools without necessarily going into a full-fledged clinical trial, and hence bringing product to the market earlier, as well as saving the cost in the process. So there is clearly a space where you can use information technology and harness that potential. Another extremely important example, maybe not just limited to biosimilars, is what's been touted as connected health. It's extremely important that, if you look at it, it's not unimaginable today, where there are several devices I think we see where people can just put a finger on their mobile phones and get a readout on their PO2 or PCO2 content or their heartbeats or whatnot. And there are devices which have come up with their ECGs. So I think it is not too far where IT can help really identify or make predictive analysis or predictive comments on how and what risk profile you will have going forward.
Now, what I'm asking is, day by day, this family physician concept is diminishing in India. Yeah? So it's better we have these IT tools right now when the industry is very nascent, or we are exploring something new in India, or emerging economy. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very insightful comment. I think there is that concept is diminishing, yeah. And while it is useful and psychologically beneficial, experts are going to be needed in the future as we tackle some of these more debilitating diseases. Yeah?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please.
Nice presentation, nice overview on biosimilars and current and future potential for biosimilar.
Can you identify yourself when you ask the question?
Yeah.
Can you identify yourself when you ask the question?
Yeah, I'm Sanjeev Gupta. I work with IPCA. I head research and development in IPCA. So I also believe that biosimilar is very promising, and there are a lot of opportunities in biosimilar. But my question is that if it is very promising and very lucrative area, business point of view, and also we provide affordable drugs to the Indian patients worldwide. And why companies are closing down? Why companies are, in between after 6 years or 7 years, they drop out their, plan. They invest a lot of money, 100 million, 200 or more than that. In between, they drop out the plan.
Yeah, I think it's a very pertinent question, because the first thing is, and very rightly said, your observation's been very right. The first thing is that this space in general is not for the faint-hearted, right? I mean, on a lighter note, it does take time. I've given you the matrix. It needs huge amount of confidence in what you're doing, and not just in your technical ability, because you will meet several challenges along the way, several failures along the way. I think it's not easy, apart from the financial ability to fund that process. It's the will and the confidence that you will be able to get there. I think it's taken, I mean, if I were to cite from Biocon's personal example, I think what we see today as success from the molecules that we have, we've had our first, we've been the first company across the world to have got a biosimilar approved for breast cancer drug in the US, and we made it again with a neutropenia drug, and it was the first company, and that company was from India, which makes us even more proud. But what it hasn't said is the number of failures that we went through before. So clearly it's a humbling process when you reach success, but it's really the commitment and the confidence in the people, the process, that you will get there. So yes, people burn money in the process if they are not committed to making that difference, and it requires some faith. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Please, Nitin.
Yeah, this is Nitin here, Nitin Deshmukh from Kotak Private Equity. So I'll just add to his question. In fact, probably he was a little reluctant to elaborate on the failures, but the question that I have is, what is it that is making Biocon so different? What is the execution that Biocon has done differently vis-a-vis so many other pharma companies, the big pharma out there in India, who probably were much larger companies in India, right? I mean, whether it was Reddy's or whether it is Cadila, whether it is Cipla, whether it was Lupin, I think they are much larger companies even before Biocon actually came to in the horizon in some sense, when you started the business in the late 90s or whatever in this space. So what is it that Biocon has done differently from other big pharma in India to make it so successful in India in the entire biosimilar space or the biologic space?
Right. I mean, the question, thanks Nitin, is basically what's the secret sauce, right?
Yeah.
So you've known Biocon personally for a very long time. You've been involved. I think the difference is in the culture. Okay, I think the difference is in how you've approached what you've done. You have had, you have basically what you've done is you've taken away the fear of failure. If you allow a scientist, a researcher, that you will not be persecuted if you fail, then you will see the ability to take risks will be higher. And I think Biocon has had that entrepreneurial culture for a very, very long time, even when we were a very small company. And I would say over time we've realized that being successful is having actually endurance to be and actually run the course. And if you want to be successful, you'll have to run the course and you will meet your share of successes. But if you have the confidence and the faith in what you're doing, in the vision that you've set, I think it eventually does pan out. And as I said to Mr. Gupta, right? We've had our share of failures. You've seen some close up, but I think it does play out if you have that culture of allowing people to grow.
So congratulations, Shreehas. I think good to see you do so well in this space, and I think as a UDCT alumni, of course, we are all proud to see your success.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other question?
So this is Dr. Deepesh. I'm a medical doctor working in public health space with a public policy think tank called ORF, Observer Research Foundation. My quick questions are, what made Biocon set up their manufacturing facility in Malaysia and not in India? Second thing is, with this biopharma mission, what is that big challenge that we may have for us to succeed in this? Third thing quickly is, with CDSCO, what kind of strengthening that we need to really have in the office and their expertise for them to be able to help in biopharma?
Yeah. So I think, let me answer the first part of the question. I think we've made, I know the investments that we've made in Malaysia are substantial, and people do talk about it because we have set up a very large facility, starting from research to manufacturing to medical devices there. But I think we should also say we made several fold more investments in India, which is also true. One of the reasons for choosing Malaysia has also been the reason for our need for diversification and risk, in some way risk mitigating from a geographical standpoint. That's been the first primary need. The second is Malaysia has remarkable infrastructure which is needed for a biopharma kind of setup: uninterrupted power, water supply, road connectivity, air connectivity. I think Malaysia really has scored well. Access to talent through Singapore has been another place that it has scored. And like we are seeing now with the government, we've seen in India, the government has been supportive in the past. We've seen Malaysian government also been willing to encourage skill development and has programs towards investments in that direction. The second part of your question, which is related to more about the regulators and how they can enable, I think the regulators are in a kind of a bind in times because they are challenged and pulled in several directions. I have had personal interactions with several in CDSCO, and there are some quite remarkable, knowledgeable people there. I think the benefit from the regulation perspective will be if we can allow policy to be more risk balanced. If it can assess benefit to public health versus potential quote unquote the risk to any adverse event, I think that balancing and the ability to make those risk balanced decisions would really make that difference to industry and public health.
Thank you.
I wouldn't know the specifics, unfortunately. Thanks.
There's a question at the back.
Yeah, I have a question, sir. I'm from Biologics. I'm Kaumil Bhavsar and looking upstream. So I have a very basic question. So we are talking, first of all, I'd like to congratulate Biocon for making a global presence on behalf of India. But India being a potentially growing market for a biosimilar requirement as quickly, so still, even if you consider the biosimilar drugs, millions of patients in India cannot afford that biosimilars. Out of 100%, only 30% can afford biosimilars even at the biosimilar costing. So what companies like Biocon and who are into a major biologics player are thinking about the markets? They really want to reach the billion patients, and India could be the startup. So what are your thoughts on it? How can we reach more and more patients with even, so why can't we even launch the products on a very breakthrough prices?
Yeah, so I think good point, and I said that's true. There is some distance to go clearly on the pricing front overall, but if you see from the disruptions that have been created in the marketplace today, I mean, Biocon has created a set of disruptions. I wouldn't want to tom-tom those in terms of use this forum to tom-tom about Biocon, but I think there are enough examples I cited here who have created anywhere between 30 to 70% reduction in prices. I give you an example of filgrastim, which is not a Biocon product this time, has created a disruption which has taken over 90% plus of market share. So there is a change coming, okay? There is a future which is brighter than today. Costs are still not in small molecule range because the cost of development is 10-fold higher. That's clearly there, okay? And that needs to change. I was answering the person sitting right next to you's question. Regulations need to evolve. confidence needs to grow that these products will be safe to use, because that's the primary concern. And I think once we've addressed that, now that we've proven it works and is safe and is efficacious, if not better, then there is going to be a future where there will be much more access to patients than before. So in my mind, it's coming sooner than later.
There's Shamlan, you want to?
Okay, I'm Shamlan, I'm from UTCT. Why is the cost of insulin increasing? So when
Sorry,
we hear,
couldn't hear.
why is the cost of insulin increasing? This is the age-old drug. It's been around for quite some time. So why is this cost increasing?
You should be in the US Senate as well. They asked the same question there. It's a 100-year-old drug almost.
Absolutely.
And it's royalty-free for people to, for companies to use, and cost of drug has been increasing. Well, the United States is a very complex market. It's a question where the companies have not yet been challenged in terms of having a true biosimilar player in many of these products. I think we are starting to see early biosimilars for some of the longer acting or the basal insulins, as they say. We will see more products in that space soon. You have seen regulations changing. You've seen the overall narrative from the government in the direction of removing middlemen, for example. The US has a situation where all of the revenues that you see don't necessarily go to the drug makers. There is this whole concept of pharmacy benefit managers. There's this whole concept of insurance or payers. And then there is this, what goes to the patients through a copay. So it's a complex model in the United States, which the Trump administration now has also been saying needs a relook. So costs will come down because there is a need which is being driven for access. And I think that voice has grown larger than it has ever been in the last several years. So I think there will be a time where biosimilars will enter the complex United States regulated market as well.
Do you say that the insulin price in India has also gone up by 800 times?
No, the insulin prices have changed. We have some players in India who have allowed that to happen. The regulations have been helpful, and I think we've basically seen that those prices, I think we were the first to bring the biosimilar insulin into Indian market, and when we came in 10, 11 years ago, I think there was a disruption. But again, as I said, I didn't want to use this forum for
I don't think there is a corresponding increase in India side, so that's a US story.
There hasn't been. It would be very surprising to note that the numbers that you saw there, where I think human insulin is around at $120 odd per vial mark, in Europe could be under $10, in India could be around $2 or $3. So that's the kind of variability that we're seeing. And that is something that there is the outcry for.
Correct.
And that needs to be addressed. And that's the difference that biosimilars can play to your answer, Bhavsar.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Very nice presentation. My question is actually
Please
is in
identify
line.
yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Dr. Geeta Godbole, and I've been working here as a visiting faculty so this is my third year right now. So I would, the question is in line with the earlier question asked by this gentleman. So the question is that the example that you gave, the Neupogen, which showed 93% penetration into the market. So what were the reasons for that? First of all, whether it was made affordable, or whether the European regulatory initiatives were such that it made the access of that drug, and it was able to rather replace generic molecules, or what exactly was it? And my second question is that those initiatives that were taken by the regulatory European regulatory part, are they being worked upon or implemented in India here? So any idea on that front?
Okay, so let me answer your two questions. The first one is a simple case study. I think it's out there. Europe's always been on the forefront of this because they have a public healthcare system which once a drug is approved, as I said, through a central drug system, you need to get country approvals across Europe. You'll still need to get the pricing approval across Europe. And they've been very forward-looking, using a biosimilar or any product which is approved by the regulator at par. So it's not considered inferior. So that's the first status that it's considered at par. There is no mind block per se, so which allows decision making to be made on equitable grounds. I think that's really been a game changer for Neupogen and for many products to follow. That is a mix. The 5 things that I said, companies willing to invest, regulators willing to approve based on science, government setting legislation, physicians trusting the data that their regulators have approved, which makes the difference to the patient. Commercial success will follow because it's an outcome of all these 5 pieces coming together. That's been shown that it can be done. It's a classic example that people will apt in the future. Your second question, can that be applied across? Again, look at what EMA, the European Medical Agency has done, Medicines Agency has done, is they've actually said, if the molecule is definable, if you can come up with enough characterization of the molecule, actually provide that information, do the in silico analysis, we are willing to decide whether you need to do a full-blown clinical trial. You show us that it is having limited immunogenic potential. Can you actually have that discussion based on science? Can you actually have that discussion based on data to show that the molecule has more benefits and not the immunogenic potential or the downsides that it is perceptionally known to have or could have? It is a forward-looking approach, okay? But it is coming. It will bring us closer to more affordable innovation. But it is not there yet. Even EMA has to get there. Will India get there? Of course, India will get there. India has been moving things around. We have improved the way we have done things from the last decade to now. When will it happen? I mean, I wish it happened yesterday, but it will take time. And because you are talking about real people, you're not talking about revenues, you're talking about people and their lives. You want to be sure, or you want to be as sure as you can, based on your risk-balanced approach to approve products in public health. So that is really the conundrum will be when.
So I think that is the right note where we end this discussion. And as a scientist, I'm less bothered about failures and successes because those are the endpoints. But as you rightly said, the path is to bring that $100 million investment in biosimilar trials to 10 million, make biosimilars work like generics. But to do that, we have to be able to characterize a protein as confidently as we can characterize a small molecule. And that's where I think the entire workshop is about, one step toward that direction. And I hope science, all the scientists that are in us over here, we can try to achieve the goal where we are far more like the regulatory body says, that if you can give us a characteristics of a molecule that gives us confidence that it will have no problems as far as the efficacy of the drug is concerned, then we will have arrived at where we want to arrive. Thank you, Shreehas. It was very illuminating and truly innovating. You have served our purpose, organizers' purpose of giving like a exhilarating and motivating talk. Thank you very much. We give a big round of applause.